Tessa, thanks for having me. You know, this is an issue that the Democrats should have passed a budget 7 months ago. It's just for the next 5 months of this year, but there is a solution. And today in the Senate, there is a bill that funds our troops, that does some cuts, and we ought to pass that today to keep the government running through the weekend so they can continue to work on these other sticking issues next week. I think it's irresponsible for the president to say, oh, I don't want to deal with a 1 week extension at this point. We need to absolutely get this passed today, signed into law, and keep the government open.
Yeah, I'll mention that you have the choir there in the rotunda behind you singing, so it's filling the halls of Congress with music. It's almost as though you're being serenaded as you're doing your cable news interview here. Oh, okay, so the president has said he will veto the House resolution. This is a 1 week extension that includes funding for the DOD throughout the year, would make sure that soldiers, enlisted members of the military get their pay. And the president has said he'll veto it because he does not want to have a temporary stopgap measure. He wants the compromise. He wants the deal done. Isn't this a deal that, I mean, at this point, you're arguing about women's health. You're a doctor. Is that really something that should go in the budget? Should this be the reason why our government shuts down?
This government can stay open if the president would just sign what's in front of the Senate today, which is to keep the budget open and keep the government open for another full week while they discuss some of these other issues. The only rider on here that has to do with anything has to do with the D.C. abortion issue, which the president signed last year, which 47 of the current Democrats in the Senate have voted for. We need to vote for the bill that keeps the troops funded and keeps the government open.
Senator Barrasso, we've had your colleagues point out over and over again, there is not federal money that funds abortions. That is a false argument. The federal money you're talking about, for instance, for Planned Parenthood, also funds things like early screening for cancer. It funds family planning. It funds a whole slew of women's health issues without which many women would be left untreated, undiagnosed. You're a doctor. How can you support that?
What I'm saying is that that's something they can be debating next week. There's no reason to shut down the government today. There is an opportunity to keep the government open, and for the president to say, well, gee, I'd rather close it this week than next week, I think is irresponsible and not allowing us to get the maximum number of cuts as well as deal with the other issues and keep the government open. There's the opportunity to keep it open today and fund the troops. It's the only bill that's come out of the House to the Senate. You know how this works. You pass in the House, pass in the Senate, send it to the president. The Senate should pass that bill today, Contessa, send it to the president, and let's see if he does want to really shut down the government, because I want to keep it open and operating.
Senator, you've done an admirable job keeping your points on track, even with the singing behind you. Thank you so much for coming on with us and sharing your point of view.